Okay, so today we are going to do value scale number 2. These are just 2 columns, so that's all you need to draw on your paper. So from yesterday, remember we don't want the column to be right on the edge of the paper. I'm going to put mine here to the left, just because. So I'm going to draw my column there. I'm going to scoot it over just a little bit here so it's not right on top of the other one. I'm going to draw on each side of the ruler. Remember, the ruler is the width of our columns. And then the same thing as yesterday, you need 8 to 9. If you have just regular copy paper that's like 8.5 by 11, you're only going to be able to get about 8 squares in there. If you have sketchbook paper, you can get 9, but remember, no more than 9 and no less than 8. So remember again, the width of our ruler is the size of the box, and I line it up with that last line that I drew, and I just draw it on the back here. I'll scoot my paper over just a little bit. Oops, I didn't go all the way to the end. I'll line it up again, draw a line, draw a line. Several students yesterday were saying, how come it's so perfect? Well, if you use the width of the ruler on both sides whenever you're drawing your line, you're using that as your straight edge, and plus the boxes will all appear to be the same size because they're all the width of the ruler. So it's not necessarily perfect and it's not perfectly straight, but I'm not really concerned with perfectly straight, straight and square, I should say, but I'm just concerned that it's all even, if at all possible. Okay, so I'm drawing those all the way down. Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have my 8, and remember we don't need this bottom part, so you can get rid of those lines. And I hope this is showing up really good on here. I did it in pencil, but we don't need that top of the line either, so we can erase that. Okay, so this first one that we're going to do on this side is going to be called side of pencil. Whoops, misspelled pencil. Okay, and then this one I'll get to in just a second. So literally we're going to be using the side of the pencil. And one thing that you need to make sure that you have is a sharpened pencil like this. This will work. I have 3 other examples here that will not work. So this first one here, it's definitely needs sharpening. It would be really hard to write with that. It doesn't have very much lead poking out, so that one would definitely not work. This one has a little bit more lead, but it's still really dull, so this won't work for this. This one's a little bit better. It'll work for a little while, but you're going to need to sharpen it, which means it may get, when you're doing the side of the pencil, it may get dark. So it's best to start with a nice sharpened pencil. You can sharpen it along the way. You just have to be extra careful when you go back to draw on your paper. So I'm actually going to rotate my paper here just for me to use it, because I'm going to hold my pencil like this. I'm not going to hold it as I would normally draw. I'm going to hold it on the side because we're using the side of this from the tip to the bottom edge here to do the color. So again, we're going to start with the darkest one at the bottom, and then we're going to work our way light at the top. Okay, so you can start out pretty hard pressure on your hand. Now right now there must be a scrape or something on the table. That's why you're seeing that line in there. Just like color pencils, you can smooth the pencil out by going the opposite direction. So I'll come and do that in just a second. There must be something else on the table. Yes, there's paint. So if you put it on a smooth surface, you won't have any problems like this. I just rotated my paper here to the other side so that I could get on into the areas that I couldn't get to as easily. Remember, neatness is part of your grade, so you want to make sure that you stay in the lines really well. One thing about this, if you do have to erase, I would probably wait to the very end. Like, let's say you get out of the line a little bit, I would probably wait to the very end to erase, and I will explain why in just a second. But I'm working on getting this one nice and dark because it's the darkest one. Okay, so I could probably go over that a little bit more, and I might come back and do that in just a second, but I want to show you a couple of things. So the reason why I want you to wait to erase on the edge is because you have a lot of graphite on your paper, and if you worked on this yesterday, you probably noticed on the back part of your hand here and on your wrist, you might have got some graphite, and you might have stamped it across your paper as you were working. This has a lot of graphite on the paper, so it's definitely going to get stamped around. So if you're wearing a light color sweater like I am today, you'll want to pull up your sleeves. You could also, as you work, put a piece of paper over it. That'll help. But whenever you erase, if you brush it across with your fingers, you're going to brush all that graphite across it. So what I would do is I would wait to the very end, and then I would blow or wipe around, not over the top of. So that'll help that from going all over the paper. So I've got my first one here. Like I said, I could probably stand to go over that just a little bit. I'll bring it up a little bit closer so it is a little bit darker there. So then the next one is going to be a little bit lighter than this one. So it's still, you still have some pressure on your hand. And remember, just like yesterday, it is easier to make a lighter color darker than it is to make a darker color lighter. Now, if you were to have to make this lighter, you would have to use an eraser. Since there's so much graphite on the paper, the eraser is going to get filled with that graphite pencil, and then it's just going to smudge up your paper and leave residue all over it. So I would start light and work your way dark, layer it darker. That's going to be the best way to go. If you figure out the hard way that way, then that's fine. This is all a learning experience. That's why we're doing this. Is the technical part of value. We're kind of learning the basics right now this week, and then next week we're going to go into some even deeper technical value parts, and then we're going to have our mini project the next week, so the week before we get out for Christmas. So this one, even though it might be hard to see on the camera, it is a little bit lighter, okay? This is a gradual thing. Remember, it's going to go from dark to light. So now I'm going to go to the next one. I'm not putting as much pressure as I did the last time because I want to make sure that I'm not going to get it too dark too quick. Some of you that are heavy-handed and you always have a lot of pressure when you write and when you draw and that sort of thing. The darker ones are going to be easier, but once you get to here and on to the end, it's going to get a little bit more difficult. So this is why we're doing it. It's practice. I want you to learn how to use different pressures on your hand. This is coming really handy as we work through some of our projects through the rest of the year. So this one is probably a little bit too light, so I just have to keep working with it and keep layering. I'm probably going to be using that term a lot on these next few weeks on these projects on value, because value is a lot of layering. I know it seems tedious, but if you layer and work on it correctly, and you're not just trying to slap something down on a piece of paper for a grade, you're actually trying to work through the layering process, you'll be very surprised at the end result. If you're just slapping something down to get a grade, then your grade will reflect that. Okay, so now I'm going to move to the next one. Notice I haven't had to sharpen my pencil much, right? You shouldn't have to. You might have to down here, and that's okay, but you shouldn't have to. You should probably be fine as long as you're not using the tip of your pencil. So I am working to gradually change these, make it lighter. Some people like to, you can see I'm kind of changing my motion. It isn't all back and forth. Sometimes it's around in circles. It just kind of depends on what your hand is more comfortable with. Sometimes go in a different direction As you can see here, it's kind of smoothing out some of those different colors, lines that you see in there from when I laid down that first layer. Okay, so I would keep going all the way till I got to the end. I did this one earlier today in first hour, so I have my value that's changed. Now the last one is not going to be fully just left white. There will be some value in there. So you can see it goes from dark and then it just gradually gets lighter. Okay, this one may be a challenge for you because it is using the side of your pencil and it is working a little bit slower with that one. Okay, so we got side of the pencil. I'll take this and move this. And now the last one for video or value scale 2 is called stippling. S-T-I-P-P-L-I-N-G. And stippling is a technique where you use dots to create value. There's a lot of different painting. Another term for it that you may know is pointillism. So there's a lot of paintings that use pointillism, which is a lot of different dots to create different colors, especially when you're further away. They'll have the appearance of, if you put like yellow and blue together, when you get far away it may appear green. You may have heard of the term pixels. That's where pixels are dots, and from far away they create a color. So this is kind of the very basic level of that. So you can still use this pencil if you want to. The sharpened pencil, it is going to create a more smaller dot, and you probably can't really see that very well on the video here. But if you were to use that last pencil I showed you, that was dull and wasn't really the best to use for the side of the pencil, this one is probably the best to use for the dots. And literally it is just making dots, and it's very tedious. And in this one, the darkest one at the bottom, there are going to be a lot of dots. So these first several are going to be very tedious throughout the process, and it might get annoying. If you do this in your sketchbook, it won't be as loud as it is on this video. Or if you have other siblings or your parents around, they may get annoyed by this. And just apologize in advance that you're going to be dotting on the table for your work today. Like I said, you can put a piece of paper underneath there, put it on a magazine or something like that, and the noise won't be as bad. So as you're stippling, like I said, the bottom one is going to have the most dots. It's going to take the most time to fill it because you want to cover up the white, okay? So I would probably continue this for many more minutes to finish this, and then I would keep going as you go all the way. At the very end, there may be just a few dots. It's not going to be left white. None of the end ones are left without anything, but that might be what my end one is, and then I would definitely add a lot more dots to this one. A student in one of my classes asked, what if these dots, instead of dots, are small dashes? Small dashes are not stippling, so that will not be accepted. So you may get points off for that. This value scale 1 and value scale 2 are going to be worth 80 points. And then I will post values scales 3 and 4 later. And those are going to be, whoops, this is not value scale 3, this is value scale 2. So you can see that as I drug that across the paper that it brought some of my lead over there. So side of the pencil and stippling is value scale 2. I know there's only 2 of them, but that's fine. And then, like I said, I'm about to post this for you to see, and then I'm going to get ready and post video value scale 3 and 4. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know.